Hello and welcome to the Kimbley IT podcast. This is episode 78 and it's just myself and Carl this week. And for the first time in 2 years, I've just taken a bit of advice from you, haven't I? And agreed with it.
Shocking he admits first time in 2 years. I think you've taken other advice, you just didn't want to admit it. This time you admitted it.
Yeah, it was a bit of copywriting that I'm working on, and then Carl came up for a good rewrite for the last paragraph, which makes more sense. And I generously and graciously accepted.
Yeah, humility personified you are.
Recap. Let's go on to the recap then. So, yeah, tell us about how it's going with the new accountancy practice that you've been onboarding.
I've spent the last week moving a lot of data. It's been an onboarding from Office 365 to Google Workspace. Not something actually we come up against that often in this way. It's a true Office 365 migration where the client had all their data in OneDrive, and it's been hard work, a lot of data, and there isn't an easy way to migrate it.
How much data was it in total?
I reckon about 2 terabytes. And here's the reason why, James. It's actually 1 terabyte of data they've got, which is a lot of data if you know your numbers. But for some reason, they had a copy of their data in their system, and people were working from both sets of the data. Now, I've worked it all out with them. We know where we're at now. But this goes to show how easily data can get confused with your IT. So I've had to keep both sets.
So they had tons of like duplicate files and Excel files and Word files that were the same.
The whole lot, James. The whole lot. Imagine a whole set of data, and then next to it is a copy of the whole set of data. And you're working on set A, I'm working on set B, and we don't really notice that we're not using the same data because we use different bits. That's what happened. So it's taken a lot longer to migrate it. However, the good news is I found a new way of doing it using a tool that we use online, and it's made it a breeze. But I wouldn't have discovered that without this challenge.
Yeah, that's actually the new enhanced backup by Kimbley IT tool.
That's right.
You found like a cool way to use it in a way that it's not intended.
Yes, I've used it in a way it's not intended to be used, but it worked really well.
Worked out well for you. And you wish you knew about that right at the start of the migration, I imagine, rather than it was about halfway through when you discovered that you could do what you wanted to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But now I've learned this. The next time we've got one, I'll be using this tool from the very beginning straight away, and it's going to save loads of time on the next migration by a royal mile, because it's a much more efficient way to do it.
We're talking about next migration. Judith Conancina visited a lead earlier today, so I imagine they're actually using Google Workspace already, so I need to do it on that one. Just realised. Yeah, any future leads that are using 365, you've got a much quicker and efficient way of migrating their data.
Yeah. And that accountancy practice did have to have some training. They've had their training straight away, and they're going to have continued training because they're coming from a Microsoft background and they're coming into Google Workspace. And they need a little bit of training and helping hands, but they're getting there. And the good news is the owner of the business is well on board with it. He knows he needs to learn a few things, but he's got up for it, and so we're getting there.
Yeah. Out of all the onboardings we've ever done, they have definitely struggled the most.
Yeah,
but they've had 2 training sessions now. And as you said, they're getting better at it.
That's right.
Over time. So the next one was you experienced a very worrying situation where you were setting up for a client a security key on Windows 10, and you got the good old blue screen of death appear on this Windows 10 machine. And I was chatting to the customer afterwards, and he said I could see on Carl's face all the blood drain from his face because there's basically 2 options at one point where either he was going to have to send the computer to us, or you were going to have a long journey all the way up to the Wirral to sort it out. But then I think it was after a reboot, wasn't it? In the end, that fixed it. After it's been playing up for ages.
Yeah. It was a real nightmare. A blue screen of death is the blue screen on the computer when the computer won't start up and it just keeps doing it. And you've got to get hands-on really with it to fix it. And we went through several things, and you know what? We just threw a reboot at it, and it worked. Windows 10 isn't ready for using security keys yet, USB security keys. It doesn't work properly. Something's not right with the implementation. This was using the manufacturer's software to make it work. Doesn't work properly either.
Yeah, because I dealt with it first, and I was trying to get the security key set up using the built-in Windows Hello sign-in options. So you go to security key, ask you to insert the security key, tap on the security key and all that, and it says it's registered. And after years of experience, it just didn't feel right to me. I wasn't even near the computer. I was just there remotely connected to it. And I thought, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't work. And every time he'd reboot the computer, it'd come up with the password box on the Windows 10 login screen. And you have the PIN icon and the security key icon just below the password box. And he'd tap on the security key icon, insert his key, tap it, and then you could see Windows 10 essentially typing a password into the password box. But whatever it was inserting into this password box, it would fail authentication all the time. So there's no way in using the security key. And that's when I gave you a shout, because you'd had a Windows 10 security key working once on a Windows 10 machine, your own machine, at some point. And you mentioned, you need to install the manufacturer's software. The is your YubiKey one, YubiKey software, which is exactly what you remoted in to do. And then that just caused a blue screen of death on that machine.
So what had happened was I tested it on a Lenovo laptop, James, and it worked fine. I installed the YubiKey software, restarted it was fine, it worked. However, on my HP desktop computer that's a couple of years old, I had problems with blue screen of death in the past. I'd really forgotten about that. And clearly what I think here is that our customer had probably an older desktop PC, and there's something probably about older hardware and drivers that don't work with these keys and this software that causes this kind of fault. And perhaps on a newer laptop, it didn't. I don't know. It's not reliable enough. Anything that blue screens of death, I don't want to have anything to do with.
Yeah, it was interesting that, because I thought that might be the case, but then I looked on my PC. So my PC is it's about 5 years old, but at the time it was like it's i7, 16 gigs of RAM. Actually, more than that, I think so too. Gigs of RAM, and still pretty decent. It can still render videos very quickly and all that kind of stuff. But my one, if I try and do the security key, it doesn't let me even activate it, because it says I haven't got the right hardware. So I'm imagining the i7 processor that I've got in there, and the chipset with it hasn't got whatever's needed in there. The security chip isn't compatible with Windows 10 in there anymore. But on his machine, it didn't have any of that. It would allow you to go through that. Windows 10 didn't say it was not compatible with the machine at all. So it just didn't feel right when I was trying to do it, and it never worked. And then so technically that software should have worked, because there was no reason why it not to, because Windows 10 wasn't saying there was any issues why this key can't work. But it didn't. And it was a worrying moment for you until that reboot started.
They're the worst moments, James. I hate those moments.
I was telling them that it's not the blue screen of death that's the problem here. It's the problem that if we can't get it working, it's a long way to travel to get this sorted. And that's more the problem. If it's a blue screen of death and they're just based in Birmingham or somewhere nearby, not a problem. We can get over there quickly if we have to go on the machine. But when that's probably a 3.5 hour drive to get to them from here to there. That's the thought you don't want, because it's 3.5 hour drive each way.
Yeah, and I don't even think about it. It hasn't happened, so it's one of those situations in life where there's no point dwelling over a near accident in the car or something. Like, you didn't crash, you didn't die. Let's carry on.
I've had a blue screen of death just before you started, up in Yorkshire, power station clients, and that was nicely delivered by Microsoft. They did.
Yeah, that was that Windows update you told me about.
Yeah, Windows update, and they came into their computers. All their computers are blue screened. Wouldn't boot up, wouldn't do anything at all. Ended up having to reinstall Windows on them, but because of the complexities of doing that, to even get to the reinstall part, because they've properly bought these computers Microsoft had, required me having to drive up there, which was an absolute nightmare. So that's a 3 hour journey there and back as well.
Yeah.
So we've only had to do that once, but if we have to do it, we will do it. So next thing is, so we've launched a new Google Workspace learning sessions. So these are learning sessions for Gmail, Drive, and then you can buy add-ons for Google Calendar. So you buy this through our website. So if you go to kimbley.com/learning-sessions, there's a scheduler there with the appointment dates and the times when you can book an event, and you can select the ones you want. So like I said, there's a 60-minute Gmail learning session, 60-minute Google Drive, and you can buy add-ons for those, because Google Calendar never takes 60 minutes to go through, nor does Google Chat or Google Meet. So you could buy those add-ons onto your Gmail training session or your Drive training session. There's also a 90-minute session there, which is kind of like the basics of Google Workspace, and that takes you through all the services. And then you've got the 3 hour session, which is a deep dive into Google Workspace. So you'll get a recap of the basics, and then you'll get stopped off along the way and see features that might be tiny features, but they'll save tons of time. Features that people don't really know that exist there. Could be stuff like where, the autocomplete as you're typing and things like that, and just understanding how that works and those concepts. And it's done by Lauren and Jordan, who were on this podcast, I think it's 3 episodes ago, who run CloudShed. So we've partnered up with them. and the whole booking process is online. So you go online, pick the class or course you want to go on, the learning session you want to go on, pick a time that suits you. It's all any of those times that are listed there are available. Make the payment. Payment goes through online. It's taken via using Stripe. So we've got an API into Stripe. Takes the payment. Everyone gets automatically booked into your calendar and into our calendar. And at that time when you're due, you'll get a text message the day before just to remind you that you've got a training session. And then another reminder, and then you just click on a Google Meet link that's auto-generated, and you're in the training with Lauren or Jordan, and we've made the courses up to between 8 to 10 people. So for all those courses, so we get all our clients use it and onboard it and use that training. And it was one way to streamline that process as well, because in the past it's always been they'd ask Kyle or myself, "Oh, can we get another training session done on so and so?" And we'll go, "Yeah, we can do. What dates and times you got?" And then we'd have to go and talk to Lauren or Jordan and find out what dates and times they've got and work it all out. But now we can just send people to this self-service section of our websites for learning sessions. They can buy the training session they want and get it all booked in for the users that they want. So that's massively saved us time, saved everyone time actually, saved the whole process time, and the prices are there, so it's just instantaneous.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I was speaking about it today with a prospect that I was seeing, and they like the idea of it straight away.
That's good. Yep. So that's what we're going to be doing now, sending people there. That's our recap really for the recap of the stuff we're going to talk about. We want to talk about since the fortnight ago. There's other things that have taken place, but those are the most significant items. Recap of our new content. So we've done quite a bit of new content. So I did a blog post about how you can easily build an intranet or company hub for your business. I saw this was generated, this idea was by actually one of our clients posting on LinkedIn about software they can use for a company hub, and they wanted to use a bit of software called Notion, which is a cloud-based software, but it's mainly aimed at Apple users and stuff like that. But you can build company hubs from it and things like that and intranets. But I was thinking, well, no one ever knows about Google Sites. And to be fair, Google Sites isn't something that we talk about that often with people. It was kind of like a forgotten product of Google Workspace for many, many years. Very, very, very basic. And then when they did the new material design on all the other services, Google Sites got left behind. It was just very dated and old. But they about 2 years ago, they updated it. And I was just thinking, well, we don't talk about this enough and people don't know about Google Sites. So I brought this blog post out about Google Sites, how to use it to build a company hub. I've already had one video call with a client who's going to start building it, the Charade, the motor car supercar repair center. They're going to start using Google Sites to build their own intranet, because when they onboard new people and just have processes, and as you know, when you're repairing a car, you have to repeat the same process over and over again and document it, so they can do that using Google Sites. And it was just something we know talk about. We're bad at that. We need to talk about Google Sites more to people as one of the parts of Google Workspace.
Yeah, definitely a quality bit of kit and not being used.
So I did my founders log and IT supports updates blog post, and you'll like this because you know that we've since about was it December or October last year, we started recording if people have been trained, would they need to have got in contact with us for assistance or support? And last month in February, I worked out that if 33.3% of people who got in contact with us wouldn't have had to if they'd had regular training based on the questions they'd asked. And it's like, this stuff is the things that you need to know, because whenever we complete a helping somebody, assisting somebody, or supporting somebody, we fill in a form, and one of our questions is based on that specific issue, not the person as a whole, but that specific issue. If they'd had training, would they needed to get in contact with us? And 33.3% of those we felt didn't need to get in contact with us if they'd been shown. So it's one of the reasons why we've also built the learning sessions by Kimbley IT into our website, so we can now just guide business owners. Go here, look at these requests we've had come in from your business, and you know a lot of these would never have been requested if they'd had some training. So get those 10 people together and get them on this training course, and then they won't need to bother asking that question again. They'll know it, and they'll learn more stuff as well. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what I've just done now. I've just done one of those as well for somebody who didn't know that they can do this feature, which is file version in Google Sheets. So you can go back to something if you make a mistake in a sheet and the calculations don't work out. You just go back to where you were when you started, or where you were 10 minutes ago, whatever you want to do. So I've just added one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why learning's so important. Did another blog post on how to export your data from Google using a service called Google Takeout. So one of the things we do, we don't tie any of our customers in. They have a contract with us and stuff like that, but they can leave at any time if they wanted to. If they leave before their contract's over, well, they'll probably still owe us some money, but they can leave at any time. And Google Takeout is a service that allows you to go and export all your data that you've got in Google Workspace. So that's the one real nice thing about Google Workspace is your data is never owned by Google or us or anyone else. It's always owned by you. And you always have access to a service called Google Takeout where you can go in and export that data. Now, the access to it is limited to, in our case, by default, if you went for a vanilla version of Google Workspace, any user could use Google Takeout, which is kind of a risk because you may have like somebody leaving your company and they decide to export your data and take it with them. So we limit it just to directors of the business, super admins and directors of the business who can go in there and export users' data. So kind of useful if you've got a user that's left the company. You want to kill their account because you don't want to keep paying a monthly fee to Google for that account that no one's using, but you want to have a copy of all their emails. So Google Takeout, you can pick which service, you can select the whole lot, you can pick individual services. So good user cases, they pick Gmail and then they download an archive of all those emails from that user's email inbox in an inbox format. So it's quite easy to view using a bit of viewing software. And then they can go and delete that license because they don't need it anymore. And they've retrieved and got a copy of the emails that are inside that user's inbox. But with all the services, no matter what you download, it downloads it in a usable format. It's not some kind of weird proprietary format. It's just a bog standard, normally open source format where they can. You can then just use it to import it into any other service or manage it or access it.
Got you. Okay.
And then finally, coincidentally, we did another blog post about why you should use a security key to secure your Google Workspace account. And this is basically focusing on the fact that with SMS-based security keys, they can be technically manipulated with SIM swapping and stuff like that, those tactics. And then even with app-based code ones, you can socially engineer somebody to reveal that code to you by pretending you're someone from Google and asking for it, even though Google tells everyone, we never ask for a code, but when someone's there on the phone asking for a code and you're in it and believing you're talking to that person, you'll give that code out. So security keys prevent all that from happening because a security key doesn't reveal any information. You just plug it into a key, tap it, and then it does its magic. So that's why since 2018, there's been 0 phishing reports from people using security keys for Google Workspace. So we're trying to push more and more end users to using security keys over other forms of authentication. And one client is using it for all their accounts now.
I figure at some point we'll have to force that rather than, I think we'll have to switch it to security key only.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems is you've got other services that don't do security keys. So for example, you might be using an authenticator to log into LinkedIn. So you've got all your authentication codes in one app, and then you've just got one that's using a security key. And I think it's just laziness again, because you're still going to have to use the app for these other services. So you might as well have your Google one in. That's how their mindset will be, rather than having to find a bloody security key each time to plug it in.
Well, maybe, but I think if you want people to sometimes adopt a security like this, you have to force it upon them. They just won't do it. They'll just take the shortest point of it, which for a lot of people is the text message, and that's the weakest one.
Well, one of the options that we're going to be doing on new clients that roll out, which I did on our global training consultants company, is I made security key the only option to use. So you can't select SMN or code-based authentication. So maybe that's what we'll do on future Google rollouts. So you can only have a security key.
Yeah.
And then we typically provide the first security key for people when they come on board. It's like you could call it as a welcome gift or anything like that. But it's we'll give them a security key that they can use. Of course, if they lose it, they don't have to buy a replacement. But they get one because no one's going to go out and buy them one when they're first on board. So we provide that as an onboarding gift.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
YouTube, I put some videos out. So I did one on how to change your Google profile picture. And I did a new one. I updated our one on how to convert an Office file into a Google file using just 2 clicks. Then we've got my founder's log up there again, and I also did a video on how to export your data from Google Takeout. So that's on our YouTube channel for anyone who wants to experiment with Takeout. There is a video there that will show you what to do.
Yep.
Let's get on to the news then, Carl.
Okay.
I'll probably hand this one over to you because I think you've probably read it more, but it's about everyone thought SolarWinds was the big hack of the year, but it turns out that 30,000 organizations have been hacked via a zero-day vulnerability in Microsoft Exchange Server.
Yeah, that's right, James. Microsoft Exchange Server 2013, 16, and 19 are the products affected. Now, these are the on-premise servers. This isn't Office 365 or Exchange Online as it's known. It's not that version. This is the version you might have in your own building or in your own company, and you run it on your own servers, which is the way most people used to access their email 10 years ago.
I imagine it's very common if you've got an older IT system as well. You're far more likely to have an Exchange server than anything else.
Yeah, far more likely to find this in bigger organizations. And when I use the word bigger, I'll use that carefully because that could be over 30 people in your company. You don't have to be a multinational global for this one, because it tended that a lot of old systems for letting you in and out of buildings and collecting payroll through cards talk to these kind of systems. And so people kept them.
Well, that's true, actually, because
about this is every single version of this system that is putting out the email to the internet, and you are generally doing that because that's what this system does, is vulnerable. So if you're running one of these versions of Exchange and you haven't patched it with these fixes from Microsoft, and there's 4 of them, your system has probably been hacked and compromised already, because this is coming. Go on, Joe.
I was just going to say about the size of the business that it could be, and it could be very likely to be small businesses. So Tomorrow People, who are one of our oldest clients now, when we first onboarded them back in 2010, 2011, and moved them over to, at the time it was called Google Apps for domains. They were running a Microsoft Exchange server, and there was 20 of them in the business at the time.
Well, I certainly know a company that will be running Microsoft Exchange of this version for lots of different customers across the UK. And they need to have made sure they patched this, because the chances are they'll have been hacked. This is coming from China, most likely. That's what the sources are suggesting. It's allegedly state sponsors. So this is the top people in China. So these are smart people. You've gone silent, James, for some reason. I don't know why. I think you've messed with the level there.
I muted my mic.
There we go. He's back.
I was having a coughing fit, so I muted my mic.
Oh, okay.
I'm back now.
Okay.
But yeah, I was reading that because it's out there now, the cyber gangs, cyber criminals are essentially having their own warfare over trying to take control of these all hacked servers to then deploy ransomware on it. So the Chinese state actors haven't deployed anything on it yet. They've got backdoors in there, and they've installed new backdoors. So even if you do patch this one backdoor, there might well be other backdoors that they've installed post the infection. But yeah, I was reading that the cyber criminals are currently having a battle with each other, trying to gain control of these servers so that they can then stick their ransomware software on it and encrypt all your data. So the FBI and all the national security services are saying, back up your data immediately before you even patch it. Just back up your data, because you're going to be attacked at any point. Just back it up.
Oh, this is no joke. If you've got this, it literally is no joke. If you've been compromised, and there are tools out there Microsoft provide to tell you if you have, you need to shut this off from the internet and then take action. But in my experience, you never truly know once you've been compromised if you're secure without starting again. It's a nasty situation to be in. You don't really know.
Yeah, it's because of all the extra backdoors that they've installed that weren't part of the original patch.
Yeah,
people don't know exist. Your safest bet is to move to Google Workspace.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was that one, James. SolarWinds had one, and it just goes to show that trying to run everything yourself is getting beyond the capability of even good quality IT people. This stuff now is you need the best minds at Google and Microsoft, these PhDs on your side. You can't cut this on your own any longer.
Next story is a celebration of good times. We're celebrating the 10th year of Chrome OS and Chromebooks. So they've been around for 10 years, Carl. I got my first Chromebook in 2012, a Samsung C550, which was one of the best ones at the time. And actually, I use that laptop so much, that Chromebook so much, that it's the only laptop device that I've got that's got battle scars on it from where it's been carried and moved around, and it's got scratched on the outside and all that kind of stuff. That's how heavily I used it.
Okay.
And that was when it was still very basic back in 2012. And
Yeah.
The thing I loved with it is it was a Chromebook that had an Ethernet port on it. The others don't.
Yeah.
So I was actually able to use that Ethernet port to patch into things and just go to the normal, the control pages and stuff like that, and make changes and make setting changes and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I carried it around, because it was small, it was light, and it did absolutely everything that I needed.
Yep, 10 years old.
So there's to celebrate it, they're bringing out a feature bundle to Chrome OS. That's going to come out shortly. That's going to bring in some decent features. So they're bringing in the phone hub.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it will link it to your Android phone. So if you get a text message coming through on your Android phone, it will appear in the Chrome OS notifications. You can reply back from your Chrome OS. You can control all your NFC and your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi settings all through the phone via the phone hub.
The thing I liked was if I connect to a Wi-Fi network on my Android phone and then bring my Chromebook with me, it syncs it up. Now, I know Apple have had that for a long time between their devices, and it's nice now to get this in Google's devices.
They're improving the copy and paste because it's I imagine you've had the frustration where you've copied something and then just realized you forgot you had something else already on the clipboard and you just wiped it.
Yeah,
because you didn't paste it in time. So Chrome OS, it will let you go back 5 copies.
Nice.
To store a little history of 5 there, so that's useful. It's now going to have selectable screenshot and video capture areas. So previously, you could only take a screenshot of essentially the whole screen. You couldn't just select the area you wanted. You'd have to take the whole screen and then crop it down to the area you wanted it. But now I think it's going to be very much like Snagit, where you hit the button, hit the command, which is the everything key, and I think it's W or something like that. But you press that, and you'll be able to select the area that you want to take the screenshot from or the video from, and do it that way. So you've a lot more control over there. They've got a feature called Desks, which is basically virtual desktops that you get in Windows.
Yes,
it's just a nice way of managing it, and it generally does remember all your windows and stuff like that was on there. So when you reboot, it will just load up your desks again. And you've also got a thing called the tote bag. So the tote bag is going to be it's a little icon on the taskbar, and items that you've copied, pasted, recently downloaded, all those kind of things will appear in the tote bag. So you can just click on that and get access to the most recent stuff that you've been using, nice and easily and quickly.
Yeah, it's good that. I like the one as well where if I'm viewing a web page on my Android phone and then I pick up my Chromebook, I can just pick up where I left off.
Yeah. You can do that on all computers though. You can do that on the Windows one.
I know you can. It's just I like the idea of just another one being added into, so I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. I didn't realize that wasn't there at the moment actually on Chrome OS. I thought that was already there, but
it is. But I think you have to manually do something. Whereas this made it sound like it was just going to open Chrome and it'd just be from where I was.
Handoff sort of thing.
Yeah.
Super, and we're going to start pushing. So in the past we've pushed Chromebooks, but we held off on it because still a lot of people need software that's installed on their computers, but that's getting less and less and less now. So we're going heavy in on Chromebooks for our clients. Get them moving over because they're perfect devices for knowledge workers. For video editors and graphic designers, you still need a Mac or a PC, powerful PC, to do that kind of stuff. But for anyone else who's working in an office, managing emails, doing spreadsheets, just knowledge work, then a Chromebook or Chromebooks or Chromebit or Chromebase, quite a few out there, are perfect for those people.
I'm going to jump in, and I know this one, Mac operating system. I can't find a reason why you should own a Mac now, unless you've got to use some proprietary piece of software that are only available on Macintosh operating system.
Yeah, I can't. As you know, I can't stand Mac. I think Mac OS just feels dated and old again.
Well, I was speaking to a client the other day saying his Mac Airbook's finished, and I said, it is finished. What do you do? Oh, I do Premiere Pro and InDesign a bit. I just said a good Windows computer will be fine. You don't need to spend $2,000 on a new Mac. You can spend 600 quid on this Windows computer for what you do, and it'll be fine.
Or if you've got $2,000, don't spend $2,000 on the Mac. Spend $2,000 on the PC, and you'll get a 10x PC compared to the Mac, far superior.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can go by the way, depending on where you want to sit at. But this idea now that you need a Mac, I just don't see why anyone needs a Mac unless you're so ingrained to Apple. And if you are, you're wasting your money.
Yeah, well, that's what Apple's have always been about, wasting money.
That's true.
You're buying the Apple tax, isn't it? Yeah, I'm really happy for Chromebooks and looking forward to getting more people on them. Especially now you can remote into them a lot easier than you used to be able to. So that's useful for us. The next news story is the life and death of Hangouts, Google tragedy. It's quite a good story. It's by Android Police, and it's just the history of Google Hangouts because we've moved. Google Workspace users have been on Google Chat now for a while, but all consumer accounts are now getting moved over to the consumer version of Google Chat.
Yeah.
So Hangouts launched originally back in 2013, part of Google Plus. It's pretty much the only part that lived from Google Plus, and the whole point about Hangouts was to basically bring all their fragmented messaging services all into one app.
Right.
Because at the time you had Hangouts had its own chat, you had Google Talk, you had Google Plus Messenger, and some other ones, and it was just all over the place. You didn't know which chat app to use. So Hangouts was to bring it all back together under one roof, under one app. It never really happened. In that between about 2016, I think they've got the exact years here, but between about 2016, 2014, 2016, then you did Google. It was classed as Google Hangouts Prime Time, where it was really Google Hangouts was the chat that everyone used, who was using Google products. But then, as soon as they got to that golden era, they decided to start separating it out again by bringing out a chat app called Allo, which was part of Google Duo, which was the video calling, and then they brought out Google Allo, which was meant to compete with WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, and it didn't require a Google account. It just needed a mobile number and all that kind of stuff. And they brought a load of focus into that, and they made that the had to be installed chat app on Android and removed Hangouts. Then they started to bring out chat inside like YouTube, its own chat, and then other services, and it all just got fragmented again. So again, we're going around in a circle again because now they're bringing out Google Chat and trying to bring everything back into Google Chat. The only difference now is that the Google Chat team is the only chat messaging team in Google, apparently. So before they had lots of different chat teams. I say apparently because Google Pay, the new version of Google Pay, has apparently got its own messenger in there as well, its own chat, which is separate to Google Chat. So Google can't completely get rid of having all these teams building their own chat products. But yes, on Android Police, it's just a good retrospective history of Google Hangouts, how it came about, its life story, and how it's ending, and moving to Google Chat, and hopefully Google sticks with one bloody chat program this time.
Well, we can pray.
It's looking positive anyway for Havia in charge of all of the stuff.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. We'll wait and see.
Next story is something that I'm interested in because it's a health story, and it's about Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, and one of their moonshot labs is working on a device to give humans superhuman hearing. So it's a little device you put into your ear, and they're currently trying to get it to isolate people's voices in a crowded room to make it easier to focus on the one person who's talking to you rather than hearing all the overlapping conversations and all the background ambient noise, which is great for me because I only have about 20% hearing in my left ear. So as you know, whenever we did go networking, which wasn't that often, but when we did go networking, I'd always struggle hearing people, and I'd tend to avoid it and just send you in because if I'm in a room with lots of people, I just can't hear the person in front of me what they're saying because I'm just hearing the other sounds around as well. Hard to make them out. So if they do bring this out, I'm definitely going to buy it just to see if it does improve that kind of situation.
Well, I thought it would definitely be important for you because you say you are affected with your own hearing, so that's something that's very important to you. And it's just another one of these things where technology is well on its way to solving these kind of problems for us.
Yep. The only problem I have is when I'm in crowded places that are noisy, restaurants, places like that, and you're trying to chat with somebody and you can't. So
that's why you don't tend to go to networking events.
Yeah, just said that. It's that's why you go to networking events, and I avoid them as much as I can because there's just literally no point in me going there because I can't hear what the person's saying.
No, good. You can go to them now. So
whenever the standard photographer walks up to you to talk to you about their business, I can't hear a word they're saying anyway. But everyone's had that. Gone to a networking meeting and the person they've met is a
Oh, yeah.
photographer.
Well, the person
talks for ages.
What you do, and you don't feel like saying pardon 4 times.
Yeah. Or they follow you about afterwards because you're their only mate in there now, so they can stick with you as you walk around.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Then we've got this is your story, I think, because I don't remember putting it in. So it's about Waymo. Go for it.
Yeah, Waymo are a Google spin-off. This is the self-driving car maker, and they've been looking at a series of accidents that occurred in the US in Arizona, and then they've used simulations to see what would happen if the self-driving vehicles had been the vehicles in the accidents, and massive amount of reduction in accidents. Self-driving cars just aren't going to crash as much as humans. They simply won't, no matter what people's paranoia might think. And Waymo are basically showing that the future is going to be completely autonomous driven vehicles, because the amount of deaths it's going to reduce on the road is crazy, because it showed the statistics for the deaths on the road in the United States, and it's really high, really, really high. There's people dying all the time in the road accidents, and this is just going to change that and transform it completely. And I just thought it was I think it was just interesting that it can't be long now before we start to get somewhere where this plays out for real, and we can start to see these autonomous vehicles driving around. I'm excited about it personally. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I've raised the question about whether it will come to a point where we won't be able to drive our own cars by law, that eventually that will be made illegal.
I think I'm looking forward to it just because I prefer to just sit in a car and do my own thing while the car drives me somewhere.
Damn straight. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather get in the car and listen to someone, watch something, fall asleep, whatever, but not have to fly it. You know what I mean? Like an aircraft, not have to fly the thing. I have to drive it.
I think the difference is rather than being made illegal, I just think less people will own cars anyway. You'll just be renting them when you need them. So if I need to get a car because I have to go down to Heathrow or somewhere because I'm flying out somewhere or I'm collecting somebody, rather than me having to drive down, I just get into a car and it drives itself there, and I can do my own thing on the way over. It will probably be more exact on the timing as well if all the cars are automated, because it will know exactly when you need to leave and what time to appear at, rather than having to give yourself massive gaps to go there. So yeah, I think it will just naturally be that cars fade away. I think you'll still have people who drive. There'll still be. I don't think it'll be completely outlawed. I think it will just be a massive decline in manual cars, people driving cars, compared to automated cars. And I think it will just make more sense because it'll get so cheap to hire an automated car that that will be the future. I don't think ownership of cars will disappear first.
Oh yeah, I don't think the illegality of driving will come for a long, long time. I think at some point in the future they'll just say you can't do that, you can't operate that piece of machinery. It's just too dangerous for a regular citizen to be operating that piece of machinery in the world any longer.
The one thing that carry on.
Waymo is simply showing with these simulations that there's no doubt that they are safer. These self-driving vehicles are better than humans.
The one that I think is still nonsense is flying cars.
Yes, of course. We've discussed this before.
Yeah. I don't see any difference between a flying car and a helicopter. Generally, they're basically the same thing, and they both got the same problem as well: noise. And like, people aren't going to have these flying cars flying over residential areas at night time, because they're going to be low as well. They're not going to be as high as a helicopter. They're going to be significantly lower in the air, making noise, doing updrafts and all that kind of stuff. I don't care how silent they think they claim they are. You're still going to hear one when it's flying across, and it's noise pollution, which is the problem. And it's the same problem with drones and drone delivery, and it's noise pollution. So everyone's going on about this is the future. It's a long, long way away until they can make them absolutely silent.
Well, think about the maintenance scheduling required. This is regulated industry flight. Every single person who owns a car has got to have it maintained by proper mechanics, and it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
You got to have geofencing as well, because I don't want people coming flying over and landing in my garden just because they want to land in my garden. It's like,
it's a ridiculous concept. It just won't happen. There's so much wrong with it. It's never going to happen.
Yeah. It's I don't get people who've already jumped onto that even before we've got properly autonomous cars yet. Now it is easier to do autonomous flight because there's less things to crash into. You basically just don't want to go down at a very high rate.
Autonomous flying has existed for a long time.
Yeah. All planes can fly themselves. It's one of the reasons why I don't understand why planes get hijacked. Because surely if they're getting hijacked and they've been hijacked, you just flick off the controls and do them fly by wire.
Yeah, hijacking is rare. I don't think you see as much hijacking as you used to.
Yeah, well, even hijacking or suicide pilots.
Mm.
You might not have enough time to react with a suicide pilot or anything like that, but hijacking generally doesn't kill themselves straight away.
That might be because the pilot in the cockpit can override any of the fly-by-wire equipment. That wins. That has precedence. The pilot has precedence.
And I think that's a mistake. I think fly-by-wire, because what you'd have, how I'd set it up is anyway, you'd have a command and control center. Each airline would have their own command and control center with, say, a couple of pilots on hand. Maybe you only need two because it's not going to happen that often. And if they think the plane is in trouble, they can send a command to that plane. It basically turns off all the controls in the cockpit. The cockpit does nothing at all, and they fly it back. I think the only way it would turn itself back on is if you lose connection.
I think you're more likely to find that your planes get hacked than you need that in the aircraft, to be honest.
I don't know. Depends on the level of encryption you're using, I guess.
All of it's beatable. Humans.
Yeah, but that's the same. That's the same if you're on a plane, though. All of it's beatable. You could find a way via that USB socket in your seat to jump networks and control it. It's been shown in the past that you can do stuff like that.
Yeah, but they're not. They're separate networks.
Personally, I would just go on a plane with no pilot, quite happily. Which has got everything hardwired in. And the only reason the pilot is there is psychological.
No,
people
it's not.
People won't get on a plane without a human.
You're wrong. Watch the film Sully. If you haven't seen it already, you know why.
Watch Sully.
Yeah, well, then that's exactly why there's a pilot.
Yeah, but that's so rare anyway.
Well, that's what it's for. It's for the exact situation when you need the pilot.
So my thing's exactly the same thing as well, that you should be able to take controls because for the exact situation, it's so rare, but for the situation when the plane gets taken over, that you can take control of it.
I think it's cheaper and easier to use Sully.
It's a bit old now. And it can't be on every plane at the same time.
No, but you know what I'm on about.
Scully is not a scalable solution.
I want somebody up front with a posh voice flying my aircraft, and that's how I like it.
You don't get that anymore.
Well, generally you do.
Not since the 1980s. If you had a posh pilot.
Still have posh voices mostly.
Not the ones that I heard. Not when we went on EasyJet to Ireland.
You want to get all right? That one wasn't so good, but usually they were still well spoken. It wasn't like it was someone from the Black Country.
Well, one thing that they could bloody sort out is the audio systems on planes, because you can never hear what the pilot's saying because they have a crap microphone, crap speakers, or the volume's too low. And I don't know why they can't add speakers with a bit of bass. That would improve it massively.
I don't know. We'll have to invite a pilot onto the podcast, James.
I always thought maybe it's the bass. They're worried that they'll put the volume too loud and start shaking the plane apart.
We need a pilot. We need a commercial pilot to come on the podcast who's also
We do indeed. So conversation time, which we kind of covered already, it was about we'll go on to it and I'll hand it over to you because I'll let you do the talking.
What?
Tell us why you need to continually train your employees, Kyle.
All right. There is a reason why you need to continually train your employees with their computer systems, because ultimately, if they're people sat there at computers all day long, then if they're inefficient, they're costing you money. And most business owners are always about efficiency, and they go on about efficiency on LinkedIn all the time and all of this and all of that. Yet they employ people without checking any of their IT skills whatsoever. Yet 90% of what they do is using a computer. So why wouldn't you train them? You have to train people to use forklift trucks and operate other types of machinery. You have to train them how to pack boxes, how to manufacture a product. You train them to do all sorts. You train them in accountancy. You train them in whatever else it is they do. Yet no one trains people in IT. So it seems like a massive sinkhole in a business that if you don't do it. Why don't you do it? Mostly because most people don't understand what it is the training will be about, or they think it's a waste of money. But I can tell you from my years in IT, the amount of time people waste not knowing how to do something very well, stuck waiting for a technician to do it for them multiple times, you'd easily get your money back on the training 1,000 times over if you actually did it. And you might be able to hold people more accountable for their efficiency of their work. The amount of hours that must be lost in productivity in the United Kingdom with people who don't know how to do stuff, don't know how to copy and paste, don't know how to find anything in Windows, don't know how a certain aspect of Google Workspace works, yet they've been using it for 5 years, is crazy.
It is. It is nuts. And it actually came up because our friend Pete Watkins of Blue Penguin on LinkedIn said he was receiving more CVs now where people are expressing the expertise of using Zoom as well as Microsoft Office. So it's not just Microsoft Office people are listing anymore to show that they're an expert on computers and know exactly what to do. They're also saying Zoom as well.
Well, I guess that's probably true over the last year.
And I was saying, like, saying the normal thing, anyone who's boasting about that kind of stuff doesn't know anything about computers. It should be a red flag straight away. The problem is no one ever questions it or ever asks them if they can do anything more than use Zoom.
Yeah, I don't think being able to use Zoom is particularly a skill. You click on the link and open Zoom. Yeah, can you host a Zoom meeting and create several breakout rooms and stuff? That would be more impressive to see.
The problem is that, as we know, business owners will see that and go, oh, okay, you can use a computer then. You know how to use Zoom and do something on Microsoft Word. That is perfect. You are able to do everything you need to do, rather than questioning, have you ever used this service? Have you ever done Google Workspace? Do you know how to share a file in a secure way? Do you know what the difference is between CCing and BCCing in an email? And what about copy and paste? Do you know how to do that? And they don't ask those questions.
No.
And then they, as you said, they get people who come in who just can't. The thing is, the employee comes in, he's really happy because he can't use a computer, but he's still getting paid his full amount, his full monthly wage. But he's not even but they can't even do the job that they're asked to do because they can't even use computers properly. We had an example a few days ago, didn't we, where someone was sending a message to me, and I had to guess what they were asking about because it just didn't make sense. But I guessed correctly. It was something to do with a spreadsheet program, and I gave them the instructions on what to do with screenshot and everything like that.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it, and you remoted in, Carl, to help them out. And then after you finished, I said, was it exactly what I sent that they need to do? And you go, yeah, exactly. And it was just because they've not been given any training on computers. It's not that they're crap at computers. They've just had no training at all. So they're trying to do the best they can as they go along with the little amount of knowledge they have of what they need to do. And they just haven't been given ongoing training or any training to start off with.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not going to cut it any longer. You can't keep going on like this. You're going to fall so far behind, your competitors will take over you because you're so inefficient at using computers in your company.
Yep.
It's no doubt that's where the margins are going to be made these days. That's where you're going to get competitive advantage, is being really efficient. And that means getting the most out of using your computer. Man, and if you can work fast, you can go home sooner, or at least argue the case for it if you're an employee.
Yeah, or you could just work easier because you've got more time in the day to spread it out.
Yep. So we're on a big mission with that to help people get better at using their computers. And now that's pushing training really hard with our Training by Kimbley IT sessions.
Learning sessions, Carl, get the branding right. Come on.
Well, you spent ages humming and hurrying over that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I told you, yeah, I'm just going to call it training because that's what it is. It's training. And then when I launched it, I renamed it to learning sessions.
Yes, you did. So we'll see. But it's training, learning, call it what you want. It's the same thing.
And that kind of links into the Chromebooks as well. That does, because that's the second topic I put on conversation time, which we spoke about earlier. In that Chromebooks are just so easy to use compared to a normal computer. In that you're straight, especially when you're working on Google Workspace, you're straight into everything you need to do inside the browser. There's no other programs to get in the way or distract you. There's no, for example, here's a good example. Someone sends you a Excel document. Well, there is no Excel to open it in, so you don't even think about that. You just open it in Sheets. Yeah. If you're not great with computers and someone sends you an Excel document, and you're on a PC, you're going to start looking for download it and look for Microsoft Office and do that. You're not just going to open it directly inside Google Sheets. So Chromebook makes the whole process a lot more simplified by not giving you the options to do it a different way.
Yep, that's right. Yep, absolutely. And the thing is, instantly on, instantly off, long battery life, super secure. You can wipe and refresh it yourself if needs be to give it to somebody else.
That's the best part as well, because I find the vast majority of people who aren't good with computers are not good because they haven't got the confidence to experiment. And the reason they haven't got the confidence to experiment is because they're worried they're going to wipe data and do irreversible damage. So one of the things I say to people is, experiment, have a go. Anything you do is reversible. So don't worry if you wipe something or you screw up a Google Sheet or anything like that, it can be converted back. And the thing with a Chromebook is that is like the pinnacle of that ability because of the power wash and that everything is in the cloud. So it's saved instantaneously. So if you were to somehow really, really screw up a Chromebook, so it's just not functioning at all, I don't know how you'd manage to do that, to be honest, but you can just power wash it, brand new computer, sign in, and everything reappears.
Yep.
it's just that extra confidence of giving people to explore and experiment. I guess you've noticed that that's the main reason people worry, is because they're worried about deleting stuff.
They just don't. People. I think they think that if they press the wrong button, it will just blow up.
Yeah, they'll destroy their business basically. Everything will be destroyed. All the accounts will be incorrect. They'll get into trouble. They get fired. Well, you won't.
Well, there's one set of people do that. One set of people are scared to break it, and those are probably people who are older because they used computer systems back in the day. I'm talking the 90s, when you could actually knacker it up by doing something wrong irreversibly. It was pretty easy in them days.
Yeah, you have to go and rebuild your spreadsheet.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was no backup or anything, and you were out of luck, and you have to work harder. So those people have got a history of like that. And then younger people who are perhaps a bit lazy because there's an IT support person available, so they'll phone them up instead. That's the other one. Oh, I just don't want to learn. Can you do it? Add my printer for me. And they can go into printers and click add printer, and it will detect the printer, and they'll click net, and they can do it, but they don't want to do it. So they'll just sit there and wait for IT to add the printer. And if anyone questions what they're doing, IT problem.
One of the things that's reminded me, jumping back a bit to the Chromebooks, they've also released a Chrome OS readiness tool as well now.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm going to have a try out with that.
That tool you can install and run it on Windows machines, and it will tell you if that user is able to switch to Chrome OS, because they're not running anything that can't be run on Chrome OS. So it scans what they're doing, how often they're doing it, what software they're using, and then tells you if it's good to move them across. So again, for people who are struggling with normal Windows-based computers, the old world type of computers, you can put that readiness tool on there and check if you can move them to an easier environment of Chrome OS.
Yep, I'm going to be doing that. I'm trying it out.
And Google bought Neverware as well recently, so you can install Chrome OS on any machine, any old Windows machine, or even a new Windows machine if you wanted to. You can install it on there and run Chrome OS rather than running Windows or any other OS.
Discussed that today with prospect about that. Got 20 HP laptops that are about 3 years old running Windows.
Oh, that'd be perfect for Chrome OS.
Yep, and I've suggested we'll put Neverware on them.
Yep.
Instead of having to replace 20 computers with 20 Chromebooks.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So that's it. There's so many options now that don't sometimes. It's nice that it's only you and I that really kind of do this stuff in the UK at the level we operate.
Yeah, exactly. And we have 500 plus admin controls policies that we can put on a Chromebook as well to make sure it works nicely.
You'd think all these other players in the IT industry would realize how cool they could actually be working if they got their heads together and actually read anything that Google does, but they're also blindsided to it and so obstinate to change that they'll never know.
They can't do the marketing anyway, so even if they did.
No, they can't.
If they did. So let's go on to our recommendations. So you're a big fan of Tupac and Biggie and all that kind of stuff. So tell us about Notorious B.I.G.
I am a hip hop fan. And I spotted this came up on Netflix. So last night I thought I'd watch it. It's good. It's good. If you know your history of Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, as he was known before there was a lawsuit against him, then this is really a refresher. There's nothing too new in this, James. There's nothing in this that's going to shock you. There's no revelation about the history of him.
I started watching it, and then when I got to the part right near the beginning, actually, where they go back to his history in Jamaica, and I got a bit bored, so I just turned it off.
Yeah, it's a talking heads history of Notorious B.I.G. And if you're new to, if you find yourself new to R&B from the 1990s and hip hop from that, and you're picking up that music, you might find this quite interesting. If you're an old school hip hop scholar, you probably won't learn anything that you didn't already know. But I still enjoy these kind of things because there's some old tunes in there, and I like to see some of the backstory and stuff. It's an easy hour-and-a-half entertainment on Netflix.
You know that Biggie did a cameo on a Michael Jackson record?
No, I didn't.
It is Invincible. Is the name of the album, and I believe it's the Invincible song actually that he appeared on 6 years after his death.
Oh, okay. All right.
He did a cameo on a Michael Jackson song on the Invincible album this time around. No, not that one. Invincible. It's the Invincible song on the Invincible album.
Okay. All right. Sound. Know that.
Don't know if it's unreleased material or he's just taken his voice from an existing song and mixed it in. I don't know Biggie's songs that well.
I'd have to see when I listen to it.
My recommendation is also Netflix. It's called The Dig. The dig is about, it's a story on the eve of the start of World War II, 1939, and it's about the Sutton Hoo Anglo-Saxon archaeological find that took place on some land down in Suffolk. And it's interesting. It's mainly about a story about a guy called Basil Brown, who was never recognized by the archaeological world as being anyone significant, in that he didn't use the term an archaeologist because he was never trained in it and never studied it. He did it all privately himself. So he called himself an excavator, but he was the one who discovered this find, started digging and found it. And it's the most important find of all time, pretty much, in archaeology for the UK, in that it shows that, at AD 600, we were already using a coin system and stuff like that. And previously, it hadn't been thought of that until later in the Middle Ages, that we were using coin-based payment systems and stuff like that. And it's interesting because Basil Brown, one of the requests from the lady called, what was the name of the lady? Her name is Edith Pretty, who was the landowner in Suffolk who had these mounds on her land that she wanted to have excavated.
Yeah.
She died shortly after they were found. The treasures were kept in an underground train station in London during the war. And they weren't put on display until 9 years after her death, after the end of the war. And she requested that Basil Brown was named as the person who found and discovered these treasures. But because he wasn't an official archaeologist, he was all self-trained and all that kind of stuff, the British Museum refused to name him as the finder. It wasn't until something like 2014 or something like that that they looked back on it and started and acknowledged him as the person who made the discovery and found these things. He died in the 1970s anyway, but it wasn't until about 2014 when they said, okay, yeah, we were hiding his name when we should have been putting his name out there, that he was the actual true discoverer. So it's called The Dig, and it's quite good.
Okay, cool. I shall have a look. I have seen that come up, so
on Netflix. And that's it. And I guess our teaser for the next episode is a owner of an accountancy firm who's a client of ours.
Yes.
And they are fully in the Google ecosystem like them all, but these guys have gone in there with Chromebooks and everything. So it'll be an interesting chat.
Yeah, we're going to get a perspective on how to run all Chromebooks in your business and how that works with a remote team. And it's going to be good stuff.
And using cloud technologies for an accountancy firm.
Yeah, that's it.
So don't forget to subscribe, like, and tell all your friends about this podcast. And if you want to leave a comment on YouTube, you can do. If you've got any questions, or if we've got anything wrong in this episode that you want to correct us on, especially when it comes down to that security key and the blue screen of death, let us know. But thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you again in 2 weeks' time.
See you on the next one.